3. Silence your phones. 1.
Yo, what's going on? This is We Don't Need Permission, back with another episode. How is everybody doing? My brother Sydney is in the house. What's going on, man?
What's up, my man? How you doing? Feels good to be home. Feels good to be here with you tonight. Feels good to be with our guest. And like I always say, to God be the glory. I'm just grateful to be here another day.
Yeah. And then Altorice will come in a little bit later. We do have the pleasure of having a guest in the house tonight, Chef Jamie Hunt. How are you doing tonight?
Good, thank you.
So first, we just want you to introduce yourself, let everyone know who you are, where you're from, and just, your background.
Good evening, you guys. Excuse me. My name is Chef Jamie Hunt. I am originally from San Francisco, California. I currently reside here in New Jersey. I am a chef / event planner / mom, wife, and entrepreneur, mompreneur. And I just launched my company, Chef Jamie Hunt LLC, this past year, and it is a gift for the world to see of the last 15 years of my culinary experiences.
Right, and let's back it up from the beginning, because you are on the East Coast now. You said you were from California. What part and how was your upbringing that eventually will lead you to becoming a chef?
So I'm from San Francisco, California, the Bay Area, the city by the Bay. Right. Warriors fan, Niners fan. So I am the youngest of 4 girls. We had 2 amazing parents that were really great chefs, or not chefs, but cooks. Never had a bad meal in our house.
Right.
Like, that wasn't our experience. I just was telling someone yesterday, like, we never had that situation where you were still sitting at the table at 11 o'clock at night trying to finish your food.
Right.
That wasn't us. And I was in college. I think my junior year, got a phone call from my sisters to come home, and found out that my mom was diagnosed with cancer, multiple myeloma, and my life changed.
Right.
So going to step shows and parties, all that came to a screeching halt.
Right.
And the next 2 years, we were taking care of my mom. My mom passed away in '98, and a year later, we found out my dad had stomach cancer.
Oh, wow.
So we were back at it again. My dad passed away in 2001, and it was like the crossroads for me. I'm being the youngest. My sisters were all married. My marriage was to my parents. So it was like, what am I going to do? I had a very cushy job with a Fortune 50 company, but there was something missing now. And so I found out about the Culinary Institute of America, and I think on a infomercial on a channel that I don't think even exists. So when I tell this story, like, I laugh at myself, because people will be like, I never even heard of that channel. But
it actually sounds like one of them stories. Like, I watched the infomercial.
Yeah, right. No, I was watching the soap opera Network, and it was still on. I must have fallen asleep. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and they were like, the school was like going across the screen, and I was like, what is that?
Right.
And so like I rolled over, wrote the phone number, and then went back to sleep. And then the next morning I called, and there are actually a couple of campuses now, but at the time there was a campus in Napa, which is not too far from where we live, and then the one in Hyde Park in upstate New York. And so at that point, the campus in Napa was just like a certification type of campus, or you could go there and take a weekend class. But if you were going to do like the real deal, like you had to move to New York. And so I remember speaking with a woman, her name was Karen. I think she ended up becoming my financial aid counselor. And she said, yes, come, quit your job. And I was like, hey, well, I just want some information. And she sent me this packet, like the size of a Bible, and I was like, okay, this is pretty intense.
Right.
And I filled out all the paperwork, sent it back, and couple of weeks later, I got a notification that I had been accepted. So I was like all excited. I went to my oldest sister. We call her Elizabeth because she's like the matriarch of the family. And I was like, Quinn, like I got in. And she was like, do you have a plan? And I was like,
I got in.
And so she said, okay, this is great. Figure out what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, as far as like where you're going to live and how you're going to pay your bills if you are not going to be working and all that stuff. And so like I left her house and like over the next couple of weeks, like I was just devising like the master plan.
Right.
And a couple of weeks later, I was at the Oakland airport with all of my stuff and waving to my family.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is pretty much history from there.
Right. That's pretty interesting. And then once you got to the East Coast, what was that experience like? 'Cause
That
I
was
can
an
imagine
experience.
it's a whole new world, especially going to New York.
It was my first visit to the campus was during the winter. So clearly in the Bay, we don't have winter. And I remember we like borrowed North Face jackets from like a couple of friends to take this trip, but we weren't ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the upstate winter was, it was unexpected.
Right.
And we got off the Metro North train like, what? It was so cold. And the campus is so big and it is so intimidating. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so like, you really have to put yourself in that perspective that,
right.
like, you know, like I'm getting ready to immerse myself into all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went back to start my enrollment, it was April 1st. So, like, you know, so it was like a joke,
Yeah.
you know, to some people like, oh, like, are you really going? And I'm like, yes, I'm leaving. Like, this is not like April Fool's by far.
Right.
And it was an experience. So it was like the cooler version of the witness protection program,
Mm-hmm.
where nobody knew me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anybody. So, like, I could really just, like, go to work
Right.
and, like, just put myself in another place. And the opportunities and all the learnings and all the networking, all that stuff was so valuable. And, like, I still use it till
Right.
this day. And then upon graduating, I moved out to the city and was living in New York City. And so, like, that's an experience in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Living in San Francisco, you know, I was kind of okay as far as, like, that city living,
Right.
but it was still pretty fast-paced.
Mm-hmm.
And I started out in a restaurant here, there in the city, and I just knew it wasn't for me. And I got introduced into the private sector, cooking privately,
Mm-hmm.
and like that was like my sweet spot,
Right.
and that's where I was successful.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to navigate and be savvy with like my corporate background, and it like has been great for me, and it opened up doors for me to be able to
Mm-hmm.
cater, to meet people, to network,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gotten me to this point where we are.
Right. And throughout that entire story, what is one thing that you can say, just speaking widely to a diverse audience, of what was motivating you? One, because you had to come here by yourself, and then you had to persevere, you know,
Right.
and graduate culinary school. So what was the main motivation for you during that period?
Well, so I think I was having this conversation today with someone about just about school, and it's a very different experience when you're paying for a school.
Right.
When I was in undergrad, my parents were paying for school, and so, you know, in those mornings where you like maybe didn't want to get up and you were like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go to class on Wednesday, or I'm gonna go late. Like, you didn't have that option.
Yeah.
So I think like it's a motivating factor when you're investing in yourself.
Right.
And so I think that would be like one of the biggest things is that when you're making an investment in yourself, then you like it's a game changer.
Right.
You know, like this
It
is
just
like
feels
you put all
different.
your
Yeah.
eggs in your own basket.
Uh-huh.
So like there's no option other than to win.
Right.
And so like that is that's kind of always have been my driving factor to myself, is that I'm not gonna fail, like,
Right.
so like, I'm just gonna see it through, and there's
Mhm.
definitely challenges, there's definitely setbacks, there's definitely tough times, but with all of that, there are always like the comebacks, there are always
Right.
opportunities, and so it's just a matter of being patient.
Mhm.
Timing is everything, as you know.
Right.
And just persevering through it, and then enjoying. I think it's important as entrepreneurs, because if we don't look for the fun in what we do, and not just so focused on succeeding, then like it's not worth it.
Right.
So that would be like my one takeaway, is that I just always like want to succeed. Like, I don't want to fail. And I'm just very focused, like
Right.
all the time, laser focused on what I'm trying to accomplish.
And then for you, you set the scene. There was school. You went into the private sector, and then what was next for you? Obviously, starting your own.
So being in the private sector, it navigates you through circles. So I started in the hedge fund circle, then I went into the entertainment circle, which kind of it expanded itself into like entertainers, athletes, all like kind of in that same realm.
Right.
And then I ended back up in the hedge fund circle. And what it did was it just like it gave me this opportunity to have this arsenal of experience. So whether that was with different cuisines or different cultures or different diets, it gave me like this like playbook
Right.
to really kind of be able to go anywhere. And if you were looking for something, like I probably had that in my playbook, and I could like help you or facilitate or service you. And it like just grew. So at the point when the pandemic hit, like I knew that, when you're sitting on something good.
Right.
And so, so for me last year, like I just took refuge in like my gardening, because we couldn't go anywhere. And so that was my outlet to garden. And so every morning just thinking about what turning 50 was going to look like this
Right.
year. And was I going to be able to have a party? And then what I wanted to do with my business and just my career. And like I always knew that I wanted to be like this happy medium between B. Smith, like, and have her swag, and be able to be a little bit like Martha Stewart and like navigate somewhere in there. And one morning I just woke up and realized that you were already living all of that. And so that's when you have these aha moments, like, okay, wait a minute, like you have something, you have a story, you have a product, you have a brand. And so now it's trying to figure out like how to share that with the world. How do you introduce yourself to the world? How do you allow people to connect with you? And then start to put out, everything that you can do, which is what we call content.
Right.
And that's where I am now. Being able to sit here with you gentlemen.
Right.
It's what it's all about, is being able to have the opportunity to have these platforms and have these discussions and allow people to step into my world.
So describe the brand as it is today.
The brand.
What's the brand?
So it's Chef Jamie.
Uh-huh.
And it's Cook, Create, Celebrate, which is my life. Right now, I am allowing myself to be introduced to the world, and you get an opportunity to see me cook, whether that's virtually or like through my Instagram or my Facebook. My create is like anything that I'm doing where I'm doing table settings, or like now it's spring, so like now I'm starting to garden, and allowing people to see like, hey, like, it's cool to garden. And then what comes from that, not just, the beautification of things, but like, you could feed yourself by gardening, and it's therapeutic. And then the celebrate. So I'm a big entertainer. like that's probably one of the biggest things that I missed about the pandemic is us not being able to have our dinner parties and our big summer parties, and then allowing people to come into that space to see what it takes to put on, you know, an event for 300 people, or how you can like create an event for yourself for 10 people, and then just be able to show that gamut of, you know, I could do this at this level for like this cost of money, or like I can blow the wad, right? And that's the trick of it, is that you can make anything look amazing with $20 or $200. So I like being able to reach out to both of those groups of people and everyone in between. Whether it's cooking or whether it's, you know, putting on a party or whether it's gardening. I think that because there are more everyday people that want to be exposed to these things. And I like being able to touch the full spectrum, but also like the everyday person, because I'm just an everyday person myself. And just exposing the audience to that.
And one thing that you mentioned, and that intertwines, at least for sure, dialogues that we've had here, is the gardening piece. Sydney has been talking about that for the last 2 episodes.
Oh, I get to speak because I just thought this was you.
No, I get
you know, I mean, you didn't allow anybody else to have a conversation. It was
I was waiting for you to get in.
But as soon as she finished it, you were with your next question. It was like, okay, he's having his own dialogue.
Y'all do this to me every week.
He's having his own personal dialogue, so I figured I would just sit here and be quiet.
No,
I'm good. No, I just think everything you've talked about personifies what we're here for. We don't need this whole podcast. We don't need permission. Is truly about not needing permission, and I think that's what you said. Like, you didn't ask for permission to take control of your life. You just decided that you were going to do what you needed to do to be successful. And it wasn't, what I liked about your story is that you're not sitting here telling anybody like it's some glorious road. I actually, you know, you made me really think about Nipsey Hussle a lot. Because, like, what Nipsey always says, like, man, I didn't really do anything unique. I just never gave up. And so that's what I heard from you. Like, I didn't really do anything unique. I just decided I was going to put my fears to the side, go do something that I think is divine. Honestly, I'm a child. I'm just a Christian. That God, once I start looking back on what God has done in my life, it's been very clear and evident every point, right? That He really was orchestrating this, right? And I thought it was me, or thought it was like me and his master plan, but it was literally His hands. So all I just heard was God literally engineering you, and then you being committed, right? Because to me, faith without works is dead, right? And so a lot of people are like, what's the secret to success? To me, is to have faith and to like believe, right? Believe through those storms, believe through those days where everything tells you to give up and to keep going, right? And you never said it was like, and then I liked how you also talked about moving through the different networks. You kind of glanced over that. People don't even understand how difficult it could be to network in a hedge fund network, and how picky I could imagine because I know some of these hedge fund people and the wives that you were dealing with, God bless you, then to go into an athlete entertainment network who swear they all this, and then it's a whole bunch of stuff with that. And then to navigate back to the hedge fund to then come out on your own. So I just seen your network probably is immense, because the people that you've actually made relationships with, you know, some people could only dream of kind of actually having the interaction. And more people who would focus on the actual athletes and entertainers, I think your power comes more from the actual hedge funds, that you were feeding their families and intimately involved with their families and planning special occasion and creating memories, right? Because these are people who will blow the wad, but it's also to create memories for their families, right? Because if I'm spending so much time making this money and doing all these other things, when I do have a birthday celebration or something, we might as well go over the top, right? Because these are the memories that my kids will have when I'm gone.
So I think that one of the things that is interesting to people is, so people look at, you know, the celebrities and they're like, oh, you know, how was that? And, you know, but they're people too,
Right.
and they gotta eat, and so and that's where I came in to facilitate that. But one of the things that like I learned in like being in that arena is that they're people. They're men, women with kids. They have families. They have ups and downs. These are not the things that the public sees.
That's right.
But being in the nucleus of their space every day, which is the kitchen, you see all of that. And then, like, I have always believed that there's a very definitive reason or purpose why I am in each house that I'm in.
That's great.
And so when I go into a space, I always like to make sure that my energy is good because I'm interacting with the principals or their children, or even more so that my energy is in that food.
Right.
And so that there's a safe space created for them. But then to be able to have like these very, normal everyday conversations with them, and to be, on a level with them where, it's not like the glitz and glam. It's just you and this steak, or you and this salad, and, we're talking about everyday things. And when you get to kind of peel back from like the public eye, and that person just gets to be them, and they're in a safe space with you because you are providing nourishment for them, and that's a very personal and intimate relationship. And so like I have never, like, there's always pros and cons to everything, and there's good days and bad days, no matter who you're cooking for or what are you doing or what event it is. Something could go wrong. The trick is to be able to figure it out before nobody else does. And so I've had, great experiences in all the circles because the food is like transforming them, and giving them the like space to just be them without, all the extras. And so like I will never say like this group was better than this group or this group was better than this group,
Right.
because at the end of the day, you still have to make it work for you. Like if there's a situation that I don't think is going to suit me or I'm going to be comfortable in, that can't be a good situation because it's going to come out in my food.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's a partnership with you and that client that, listen, like, I'm going to give you everything I got. And so in return, all I'm asking for is your support, and your appreciation. And I've been fortunate to always have clients that always gave that on, they were able to reciprocate that.
Yeah. So what really stood out for me in what you were just speaking about, which to me is so critical, right, to what we don't do. You use food as a networking tool,
Mm-hmm.
and you use the energy that you put into it to relay an energy onto your clients, to the friends, to the guests. Like, that's amazing to me, right? Like, we literally just had a dinner on Saturday, Altorice and some friends and I, right? And we went to Nobu. And before, I had been there one time before. And the way when I went, and the fact that there were shareables and the interaction,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I got to do this on a larger level with a different group, right? And so everybody got the invitation. They heard Nobu. They, like, a lot of my friends really thought it was just like the cliche-ish thing that I was doing, right?
Right.
One, you go to Nobu, you realize the food is really excellent.
Mm-hmm.
The shareables creates an opportunity for us to have communication.
Mm-hmm.
So we sat at a round table sharing food there was a woman who was part Korean and some other things. So she was able to express that the whole thing was really a networking dinner where everybody didn't know each other. I knew I was the nucleus, and my goal was to do that. And I've been to so many situations where friends of mine have hired private chefs like you, and literally course by course, the energy from that chef, as we sat around the table, fed the energy of the conversation, fed the energy of the night, where you leave there and you're like, dude, this was just a memorable night, right? And it was great food. Like, and the food has to be on point to me as well, right? The food has to be on point, because that's another point to, like, the food being on point adds to the conversation, adds to everything else. It adds to that memory. And so what I really took from that is that we have to learn as a people. We have to learn, because I've learned this from others, that not only energy that we want projected, right, when we're networking, we have to make sure that we align the right people who are preparing the food, so that the energy comes into the night. And so when you're thinking of a night or planning a night, you wonder why it goes wrong. It could have went wrong because you got the wrong person providing energy for you that doesn't match your energy, right? And the night. And I know one of the things that I told everybody going in there, not only is the food great, the service is great. And I felt like whatever Nobu does, they kind of, from a corporate standard, push that mantra, right? Now the person who does that, Chick-fil-A, I don't care what nobody says, right? You might like, I don't like it. Listen, but when you go in there, right? You go in there, and it's not, I know, I want to hear your side of it. But when you go in there, they're very pleasant. Like, the customer service is great, right? Like, they push a message of, like, friendliness and, like, okay, I'm sorry for that. Oh, well, so, are you having a great day today at Chick-fil-A? Like,
you know, if my kids were in here, they would say, don't talk about that. Because that just hasn't been my experience. And,
oh, wow.
And
okay.
It just hasn't been my experience.
Really?
And I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Because I don't want to put myself in any position Chick-fil-A could come back and I can lock them. So that's been my experience.
Well, we don't need permission, so if you want to just text it to me, I'll say it.
Okay, that's been my experience.
Because I just say whatever on the show. I go after whoever.
But
closed on Sunday, Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, that's great.
They did you wrong?
So I'm gonna move.
How wrong?
No,
was it like a bad sandwich?
You know what? Listen, like I will give you 3 tries, just like in baseball.
They got 3 tries and they didn't get it right?
And so my daughters know, like, and they're like, okay, don't mention that place. Because it's like...
Maybe it's your Chick-fil-A, because I've been in a lot.
Okay, now here's the thing. If it's not a chain where, like, you could come in and get a Chick-fil-A and you could go buy a Chick-fil-A. No.
Absolutely not.
It is corporate driven.
Corporate driven.
If you
and Christian driven.
Yeah, so
pastor driven.
Wherever, so if there's the one in Piscataway, should be like the one in Union. The one in Union should be like the one in Jersey City.
I feel like the one in Piscataway is owned by a pastor.
Okay, and what?
Whoa, he's just focused on profits. He's not.
I don't know.
I'm saying we're gonna check it out. That's what I do. I'm going to.
Call me when you're there.
Because I can't stand Route 22 because it's just so crowded. Union.
You gotta go to the one a little bit.
But they still do a good job. I gotta say,
no.
Like even outside, they can't help how many people are coming.
I'm gonna move on to the next.
Oh, okay.
She said no for Chick-fil-A.
Okay, so I'm
going to Chick-fil-A this
okay,
week.
Please text me and just let me know you're in line. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I would drive down there, so when you get your food, you can tell me how your experience.
Yo, I'm so good at ordering ahead of time because my kids like to get me to go on lunchtime.
Well, but so here's the thing, though. What if you were like a newbie to Chick-fil-A and you didn't know, and I say, you know what? Tell me what you have.
Oh, then just go to the app.
And so they're like, oh, well, we have such and such, but then they're like, you know what? See, I'm not going to talk about it.
So you should have been a newbie going in there.
No,
what are you going in
but
there?
It's okay.
How are you a newbie going into Chick-fil-A? Everybody's at Chick-fil-A.
But see, if you have good customer service,
you
should be able to turn that newbie into a lifetime customer.
That's true.
You come and you eat at my table. Anytime I tell you I'm having an event or a dinner party, it doesn't matter what you're doing.
So I'm putting my I don't care about him. You can exclude him. He's 25. I'm 39. I bring more conversation to the table.
Oh.
He'll just sit there and look at people.
No, and see,
And
so that doesn't happen.
No, I'm just messing.
Right?
No, but I'm just saying I want to be invited to the dinner
Okay,
party.
there you go. So, what's important about what you said is that eating, like the dining experience, is not just the physicality of eating.
That's right.
It is everything.
Amen.
So when
Amen.
when I send out an invitation to my friends and they already are like, before like I could even get out of my seat, I'm
It's like
there.
party time. Okay, I'm there.
And
That's
then and they're like, Jamie, what are you cooking?
Yeah.
And so
Because everybody knows you're cooking good food.
so
It's gonna
they're
be a
like,
good time.
like we had a friend and we were like, you know what, maybe this year like we'll just have people bring like their own alcohol, and then one of our friends was like that's not a problem because like you guys never disappoint when you have an event. And so like when you have it in your head that like, okay, like I'm going to be here on this date, and then I know like she's doing pizza on the grill, and like I already know what's going to happen. I already know like we're going to have like Battlestar Galactica Taboo, and it's going to be
So I want to do a jazz brunch on a Sunday in my backyard.
Okay.
And I'm telling you right now.
Okay.
I don't know your prices. I don't care. I'm hiring you.
Okay.
I want to put it together with you.
Sure.
I'm going to get like a 3-string chord, like maybe like 3 different instruments.
Mm-hmm.
We put together a nice brunch, like decorate my backyard
Mm-hmm.
and everything. And I want to like, it's just something I've wanted to do
Yeah,
for
you
my
should.
networking crowd.
Because
I like
the
a Saturday
dining
after-
experience is all sensory.
It's all
Like
sensory.
what you're seeing. So like for Easter, like my tablescape was like everybody at every angle of the table. Like when I like put my videos out, like, and I'll put like notes in my videos, I always have candy on the table. I always make my table interesting on all angles so that if the person sitting here like sees something, they're like, what is that?
See, you have like the right bridge though, to me, right? And it may be your age, it may be your background, I'm not really sure. But we've lost some of that. Like I know for a fact, like Easter, like my mom is, like she's not the same, right? But if my grandmother was still alive, if my great aunt was still alive, my grandmother's sister was still, like there was just certain requirements.
Right.
For Easter, like, and you're right, it was the table set. It was like, because it wasn't the dining experience. It
Right.
was everybody was going to come together, no matter what BS was going on in the family. You was going to have to put that to the side and like, and
Right.
you better pretend like you're having fun.
Right.
Because
Yeah. See, no,
you
that's
come
not
in
gonna
here-
happen. Like when you come to our house,
Yeah,
you already know
yeah,
you're gonna have fun. You
Yeah.
already know that the food's gonna be good.
Leave
You
all that
already
stuff
like
outside.
and that the energy that's already happening, like you're not even thinking about
Yeah.
all of that stuff
Right.
because like you're walking into a space where everybody is happy to
Yeah.
see each other. We're trying to figure out now, like the group we travel with, like where can we like possibly go this summer? Like, can we go somewhere not far? Like, can we get a house in Martha's Vineyard and like so like we could just hang out on the beach?
Yeah.
And it's the vibe, and it's it's everything that kind of surrounds food, because that is the nucleus of like everything that we do. And so for me,
the day is coordinated based upon the meals, right?
Yeah.
It's like breakfast, all right, what are we doing? Then what are we
Right.
doing? Like lunch, right? Then what are we doing for dinner? But it actually structures the day, right? It makes
Right.
the whole experience more structured and not just out there, and then people can have the options, right? Whether you really want to join that meal or not, if you guys want to
Right.
do other things, right? But it keeps us structured, it keeps us the kind of together.
Exactly.
And it's not food but it is a key part. And one of the things I think exposure in life, right? So one of the things you're talking about is that you have a group of people that really have had exposure. But part of your exposure to me is that you lived on 2 coasts. How many people?
Yeah.
No, like that's what I'm saying. And then you came from Oakland. Like let's be clear. At the time you came from Oakland, right? There was a very progressive group of African Americans pushing agendas in Oakland that told you that you don't need permission,
Right.
that you are beautiful, that you are a queen, and that you should walk in whatever that regal that regal ability that God has given you, right?
Right.
And that divinity that God has given you, right? And so you went out there, stepped in it. Obviously, you matched the king. You met a king that matched your regalness, and then you guys got together. And I'm summarizing this because I really want people to understand. I think this is your key to success. Like what I'm seeing, I could be
Right.
wrong, but to me, I see that you found somebody who could support you, support what you're doing, wasn't calling you, harassing you while you're in those homes, like when you get home.
Yeah, because he was a chef as well. So like he was hustling and doing the same thing.
Come on.
And you're right. Like we, when we met, he was already cooking. We were both cooking. And then at the point that we got married and we realized that our talents together were like unmatched. So he, one of the things about, being married is that I had to learn was that, being able to trust your mate and being able to know that he is the head of the household. And so one day he came home and he was like, Jamie, I don't want to cook anymore. And I was like, whoa, no, that can't happen. Like, our lifestyle is based on, what we've built here. And he was adamant, like he was not done. And so he grew up in a construction family, and he started his own company, and it took me a minute to get on board with that change. And then one morning I actually was listening to Steve Harvey, and he was talking about the whole concept of leap, and if you went off of a cliff, you would hit the side of the mountain, and there would be some bumps and some scrapes and some bruises. But when you figured it out before you got to the bottom, you would have your footing. And so just listening to that made me think about that, the biggest part of having a partnership in husband and wife is the trust factor. And so I went home and I was like, okay, what do we need to do? And I believe it's been 4 years, it might have been 5, but I knew that we were going to be favored no matter what. And in this 4 or 5 year span, I've watched him have 2 clients up to, and now having too many, so, and just the whole concept of partnership, and then being able to for him to say what, okay, you want to start your business, and then still having that chef brain to be able to sit down with him and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking about, what do you think about this? And we can still sit down and come up with these master plans in the culinary realm. It's so beautiful when this happens, because everyone doesn't get that. I have a live-in consultant,
But thank you, right? Thank you, because you said something key that he's gonna have to understand. One of the things that me being 39 and him being 25 and Altorice being 45, our main goal is to help him in life, right? And so in life, one of the things that black men we don't do is really talk about, right, what really goes on in our relationships and issues and things like that. So I just literally want to take a moment and stop and applaud you, right? Because you were clear. You were clear that you weren't always on board, but you grew, right? And the main thing that you said, while you showed complete who you were this whole time, never showed any level of timidness or felt like you aren't a boss in your own right, but you clearly said something that you trusted him to be the head of your household. And I think that's absolutely amazing. I think that's one of the biggest struggles that we have in the black community, because black women have not been able to trust that the black man is able, right? And there's so many things from society to their own fathers to everything that has played into that factor. So it's not a blame game that I'm sitting here. I'm saying that we have to do better. Society has to do better imagery. We have to project a better conversation onto the household. But I think it's absolutely amazing, because one of the things that I know about so many black men and leaping into that entrepreneurship, right? Because they come talk to me. and they're crying to me that they can't get the support at home, but they can come to me and get the support. And it rips them apart, because if you would have kept him in culinary, he might have resented you one day. And he might end up hating culinary, hating everything about it, because in his mind, he knew he should just go into the country. And I did it. And obviously, he put enough time into that, that he knew what he was doing, right? So if I'm pivoting and switch, that could have always been his backup plan. I could always go into construction, but I'm going to try this culinary. And then when we get to a point when we start having children and we start having a wife, you start going to your go-tos, not your what-ifs. And my go-to, while it might have been scary to you, was I know construction.
Right.
And I know I just got to, I'll build it, right? The time it may take me away from my kids to be a chef, to run a world-class restaurant, whatever it is, right? The goal of to be successful in the culinary field might not have gave him what the rewards that he really wanted, right?
Right.
And so that shift was not, and again, I don't know your husband, I just know from your conversations, how you speak of him, that shift was never done aimlessly. It wasn't a willy-nilly thing. It wasn't, and I understand how scary it is, right? You know, for you, we put all this time in, we're doing like, but I applaud you. I really applaud you, because there's so many black men that haven't made that leap because they don't have that support. And with that support, so many more black men will walk in their purpose. And somebody put a post today, if you could just sacrifice for 3 to 4 years, 4 to 5 years, I promise you, you will see the results of everything that you want in life. Everything. And then it's not, and then you said there'll still be more trials and tribulations, right? It's not good. But if you could sacrifice for 4 to 5 years, I promise, and focus, because you say you've dropped a lot of gems tonight, and I hope people really go back and listen. You talked about focus. You talked about being committed. You talked about trusting. You talked about divinity. You put all that into, what you do and what we're here for. So I really applaud you for that, because I know that we would have more successful men, because I sit there with these men who are in jobs that are killing them. And then when they go home and they have no life, or they're losing that lust, that. And she's like, what's going on? It's because that routine is just killing them.
Yes, I experienced that. But it's, I remember one night I was at a home where my husband did the basement for the house I was doing a party in, and I went downstairs to the dish room to get some more dishes, and I just walked around, and I knew he had did the basement, and I probably had been in the basement 3 times, but I had never really looked at it. And I started walking around, and I was like, this is good. And he came downstairs. And he's like, what's wrong? And he's got on his chef coat. He's like, what's going on? We need the plates. And I was like, honey, I'm looking at this, this is really good. And he was like, oh, thanks, Moshe. And so, being able to really watch him, have this idea in his head that he could do it. There never was a day when he didn't think he could do it. And so really kind of being able, it's like when I watch him cook, he's amazing. And because he can compartmentalize so good when he's cooking and just be uber on point, it's
that's what helps him with construction.
That's what
helps him with construction, because he knocks through his stuff.
So it's so being able to really watch him flourish and be successful, and then when the pandemic came, we had so many friends that lost their jobs, or their jobs were cut, or there was a complete shift, and then there was this favor shower over our house, and it was I'm going to keep you employed, not for the week, through the entire pandemic. And then it was you have 10 houses, then you have 20 houses, and then I think like right now he's like 74 houses on the board. And so, you know, how is it that you, like, this, our one little house.
74 houses on the board. He's already compartmentalized. I love it. That's how I have to work like that. You can't get through things. So I get it. I invest in real estate. I get, and he's probably got like this. I love it.
So, you know, so it's great that we have this partnership, and, you know, we're trying to figure out, you know, it's like a chess game.
Yeah.
That, you know, we're not in the moment right now because that play has already happened. Like, we're trying to figure out the next 3 moves.
You're in 2022 already. In second, third quarter of 2022.
And so for me, you know, turning 50 this year, the thought process wasn't so much about, you know, what life was going to look like for me, but really what legacy now am I leaving for the girls?
Great.
And so, you know, so that, you know, started us thinking about, you know, property, and looking at a farm, you know, and, you know, what, you know, black families are moving to a farm, but but because my vision of what I want to build and create was so much bigger than myself, and I was like, we need a farm.
But in Oakland, you guys, and I keep going back to Oakland, right? Oakland, you were raised and taught self-sustained ability.
So hold on, let me just correct you, because anybody listening will be like, no, if you don't know, like, you better be representing Frisco. So, like, I say this, like, living in the Bay Area, period, that agricultural, the agricultural land that surrounds the Bay Area is like none other. It's like being here in New Jersey.
Gotcha.
And when you can drive 2 hours, or you have purveyors that can drive 2 hours and they're pulling tomatoes straight out of the farms and bringing them straight to your restaurant, like, everyone doesn't experience that. And so
I give you that.
When you grow up in that environment, that's all you know.
That's all you know.
So for us, you know, it was like this only makes sense to be able to create this space where I can build a wedding venue and have passive income. I can have this farm where, like, I can have kids coming to, like, really understand, like, the whole process of farm to table. And then, like, my daughter rides horses, so you know, to have a horse, my youngest daughter wants a ATV, and so it's like, well, we're not doing that on the streets of, you know, in our neighborhood, but like on the farm you could pull that off, you know. And so this would be like our dream home, but at the same time, the dreams that, you know, that I've been thinking about since I stepped foot in culinary school, you know, are now, like, you know, this has not been a sprint. Like, you know, this has been a very methodical marathon. And, like,
only in every other communities, because every community that the business community and communities that I've went to school and trained under, you're hitting your stride right when you're supposed to be hitting your stride. Like, your life experiences is coming to a culmination, right? Your personal experiences, your network, it's all coming together.
Right.
So you're right that you're walking in the manifestation of what I believe God wants for you. That this, to me, from this story, from everything I heard, you're literally, you and your husband, because you guys aligned, because you trusted, because you put two individual souls separate and came together to try to align as one spirit, right? You guys are walking in your, and I do nothing but salute. I know the farm is going to happen. I think it's amazing that you're creating these opportunities for children from urban communities to be able to get, because the exposure, right? They're going to be able to leave out there. They're going to see the love that's generated from your family.
Right.
They're going to see that, right? That's going to be covering this land, right? You talked about the favor, right? It's not favor, it's just your husband and you guys. It is favor. I don't want to take that away, but it's because you guys put the work in. It ain't just favor because it came out the blue. You guys put the hard work in and stuck with each other and supported each other and didn't rip each other apart. And so now the favor, because I do believe the pandemic was a reset of a lot of things. If you look at certain people, certain wealth is being redistributed, different things, right? And so people who've been walking in alignment now they get the favor. And I don't believe it's one favor over the other. I just believe.
No, and I think that, we believe that, having faith in God and trusting in Him, that His favor, like over our home, over my kids,
Right.
it's, not even just from a business standpoint, but like looking at, our daughters who
That's right.
are,
That's right.
they're the only ones in the entire township in school. Like,
That's
I mean, it comes down to the most finite thing that could mean like the world to somebody else. But when we look at that, like we look at our house and we're like, wow, like this one house in the entire development is like completely covered by
Amen.
God.
Right.
And
Amen.
and so we live in that, and and are grateful for that, and so continue to trust and continue to pray. But it's but then it's exciting, on the other hand, and with the reward of it all. Like there's a lot of hard work, like you said. Like there's a lot of hard work happening. There's a lot of long nights happening. My friends always tease me that like my office hours like start at like 11:30 at night, and because like I put the girls down, and then like I may have to write a blog, or I'm trying to figure out a recipe like to send to someone, or setting up a class, or trying to figure out another portion of like this master plan, and then he's sitting like on his side in the office, and then we start like to collaborate, and those are the moments when like we're persevering through like exhaustion,
Exactly.
and and then like something amazing comes out of it. And so I'm just excited about like what's to come. There's a lot of exciting things that are like getting ready to come out for me.
Let's talk about Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
Let's talk about Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day early to the moms. There I am working with the Boys and Girls Club here in Newark, New Jersey. Great opportunity for myself in the entire grand scheme of Chef Jamie Hunt and having a business. There is no way that I could do any of this without involving children. Being a mom probably solidified that for me, because it is important to educate our children on the aspect of food, where it comes from, how it is grown, what it tastes like, how we eat it, how it nourishes us, and then being able to see the difference in that versus other opportunities to eat. Like I don't want to knock any like establishments or anything like that, because they provide food.
Okay, and they've been providing food, but there are other options.
Yes.
And we haven't always been educated on those options,
and
or
that's
been
what I was
exposed to those
say,
options, right?
That so
And we
for
need to
me, coming to the East Coast, I didn't know anything about the Chinese food spot. I didn't know about the wings and the fried rice. I didn't know about that.
Mind you, he gets on me because
that's his playhouse.
that's my go-to.
Like I didn't know anything about that.
And I got him on speed dial since a kid.
See, we're gonna help.
My cousin,
He said, "Damn, Chef Jamie."
listen, my cousin,
More than one.
my cousin, like you're right, like you didn't know, like we literally grew up. My cousin, it was just the joke. Like soon as he got $3, he was going up the street to get some chicken wings. As a kid, like soon as cars got $3.
And if he had 4, he could get some French fries. So I get it.
And he was chubby when he was like,
I know the
but
breakdown.
those are so bad for us. And that's not against the Asian Americans that are making money, because they weren't. It's not like they're pushing it on us. They're just. It's just the whole system.
That was new to me because in San Francisco, now I'm sure for me in Oakland, there's a place called like Charlie's Las Palmas, and like they make the best red snapper you're gonna ever eat. Now even in that, like I didn't know when I got here. I didn't know what tilapia was. I clearly didn't know what whiting was. I was like, "What is that?" Like I knew.
Whoa!
Exactly. I remember.
When did we get red snapper?
Well, and that's funny because that's how the exchange went at the fish place.
Yeah.
And I said, "Can I
You want
have?
the catfish?
Can I don't eat that either. Could I have some red snapper?" And the guy looked at me and he said, "What?"
What?
And I said, "Red snapper." Then I was like, "What?" So then he says, "No, we have whiting." And I was like, "What?" So I remember I was on, and I was like, "You don't have red snapper? You have oysters?" And he was like, "What?" And so I said, "Okay." So I remember getting
what? He kept like,
back. I remember getting back in the car and calling my sister, and I said, "I'm definitely moving home," because I said, "I'm at the fish place, and they don't even have red snapper or oysters." So, because that's what we would typically get at home. Like, you get a basket of red snapper, oysters, or like red snapper, shrimp, fries, and so. Being on the East Coast, so I got introduced to tilapia and whiting, and I was like, "Oh my god, okay."
No porgies?
And no, but I had tried porgies,
okay.
because we have family in Chicago,
See,
and that's
that's
the big thing in Chicago.
Okay, so porgies was acceptable.
Yes, and
you
so
could have got some porgies. They at least had the
no, I don't no, because I was already fixed on like just having snapper.
The rest.
Like when
You still have a shot right here.
Yeah.
But see, that was all new to me.
Yeah.
So being able to expose kids to
absolutely
to like options.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right that in our communities, this is what's there. Yeah. And it's not to say that it's a bad thing, but anything eaten in like an overabundance of consumption is not healthy.
Good. That's right.
And so
that's right.
This is our opportunity to incorporate these good things.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But I want to say, shout out to those Chinese stores for real. I mean that from the bottom, but I mean it from the bottom of my heart, because there was so many nights I know we scrapped up a couple dollars just to get, like, if one of my friends wasn't, like, everybody household was, like, to the credit what you're saying, like, a lot of nights those fed.
Yeah, well,
I mean, that $4 or $5 that we could put together, like, one of my friends ain't go hungry, right? Like, we would really get, put it together and make sure, like, so it was really about the economics of it, right? Because they made a solid plate that was economical, and, like, for me, and, like, you're right, it's part of the habit, but part of the habit was that somebody didn't have it, and the only way for us all to eat was for us to break and make sure so he could have it.
Another thing, too, though, on the top of that, because when I was with Head Start, one of the things they used to do with the nutrition program, they used to show us how to shop for $10.
Yes,
so
that's so critical.
I was gonna go there with the $4 movement. Like, I get it, but if they had the right discipline, understanding,
that's right,
he could have flipped that $4 in the supermarket
and training
and really got something better than
French fries. That's funny that you say
chicken.
that, because my husband had asked me last night. He's like, "What do we have for dinner?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna see what this $20 can get us."
Dope.
And
that's
and so we had like full out tacos, Spanish rice, and a salad, all for like $20 last night. Actually, I think it came to like.
People should try that. You should have a challenge for that on your Instagram. No, seriously, and show, because he's right. He's right, because so many people, we don't believe that we could actually make a healthy meal, and we'll take that $20 and go get the bucket of chicken and get three, and swear that we're providing a meal, right? When I could have just took an extra step, and that $20, and I'm only saying that because I truly believe there's so many families that would go that extra step if that exposure, but we were only exposed to this fast food, the immediacy, and understanding. Mommy been at work all day, right? She tired. A lot of our communities are. Our kids are in single-family households, right? So by the time she comes home, she's had the stress of the whole day to try to bring cooking and everything into it, too, becomes a problem.
Right. So for these kids, I am going to, with their help, transform their garden. We were out there today, and it was like life altering because when you see, you know, it's like looking at a house that you're going to flip. You already see the possibility in it. And so just standing in the garden today, knowing that this is going to be a space that is going to be beautiful, that's going to be safe, that it's going to create this foundation for the kids in the center to understand the whole process of growing vegetables and fruit. I think one of the things that I'm more so excited about is that the garden is actually big enough to be able to give these vegetables and this fruit back to like the parents and the families in the center, because, you know, in basically creating a farmer's market for them. And the buy-in comes back in from their kids because their kids have now grown it. So it, you know, not to put any more pressure on our parents, but now that the child has been like, Mom, like, I grew this, like, cook it, like, because, you know, because that's what you want. Like, you really want that child to be transformed by being able to see what it was like to take a seed or to take a bulb, put it in the dirt, watch it start to flower, and then harvest it, then cook it, taste it, see the difference between like something so fresh coming out of the dirt. That taste is never leaving that kid's brain.
So I'm gonna, as we gotta wrap up, I'm gonna challenge you with this, right? One, give us the date and time where we join you from Mother's Day.
So May 8th, the Boys and Girls Club in Newark, New Jersey, 1 Avon Street Avenue. We are looking at the morning. We're like finalizing that this week. It'll probably be like around 9 a.m., 10 a.m. We're going to have lunch, dessert, music out there for the moms to actually just max out on the front grass while I take their kids and turn them into farmers. And then like any of the community that wants to help out and assist, we welcome you. We'll be out there this Saturday cleaning up the garden, so if you want to come out and support, definitely that would be appreciative. Is there a way to connect to you? Yes.
I was going to say, Chef Jamie contact now for the business.
Contact me at Instagram, Chef Jamie Hunt. My Facebook, Chef Jamie Hunt. My website is www.chefjamiehunt.com.
And spell Jamie Hunt for people just in case.
JamieHunt.com.
Thank you so much.
And
then one last challenge that I'm going to have you that I want to work with you.
As long as it's not Chick-fil-A.
No, we let the Chick. It's a dream to create an actual urban garden, right? That we have a greenhouse that is function, right? We can grow red snapper. I don't know if that produces. You can't
grow red snapper.
I know, because I was going to say the farm fish that can be grown that is somewhat.
Oh, so you want like some farm raised
tilapia?
Okay.
And then we use the byproducts and the waste to actually create an organic, the organic waste fertilization of the rest of the products throughout the greenhouse, right? Okay. And I've seen it done, and then it creates everything that you want, a year-round economic opportunity, right? To train not only the children, but then there's a workforce that works in there every day, and then there's a farmer's market, because in New Jersey, because of our cold and everything, this is the reason why I said you have to have the greenhouse is so that it can be sustainable, because everything that we want is sustainable and year round. You could supply to the restaurants, you could supply to the families directly, all kind of programs.
Okay, I will start there.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
We don't need permission.
We don't need permission.
We just do it.